Hello, friend. Welcome to this week's episode of the Remarkable People Podcast, a Sophia Torrini story. Today, Sophia is a practitioner of EFT. Some people you've heard of it as tapping, some people you've never heard of it. She talks to us about our emotions and feelings and how they're different but connected. She talks to us today about frequencies, but how this modality changed the way she processed life and how her body physically healed and how she's not only thriving, but now how she's teaching other people to heal. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to go briefly through her life. I ask her a lot of questions. And to many of you, like from my background, I come at things from a biblical worldview. And this is something really that wasn't taught within the church. And when you listen to Sophia or other people who practice this, some of them are way out there and off base. Some of them are very balanced, and you can find the substantiation for this in the scripture. So, what I'm telling you is if you're having problems dealing with depression, anger, shame, guilt, if you are dragging and tired, Sophia covers a lot of ground that could be very valuable and life-changing in this episode. So we're going to take a quick affiliate break. It's going to be like 30 to 60 seconds. You're going to get a free promo code REMARKABLE to get up 30 to 80% off everything you order. You can enjoy it, save money, help a great American company, and have the best quality sheets, mattresses, pillows, slippers, and towels you've ever had. I use them every day, and I promise you, my pillow's the bomb. And if you don't think so, they give you 100% of your money back because their quality is so good and they're that confident. So check out the short affiliate commercial, and then we'll be right back with Sophia.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Hey, Sophia, how are you today?
I am wonderful, and you, and thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor to be on your show.
It's an honor to have you. We just took a moment and explained a little bit of your story and the purpose of why you're here today and what our listeners around the world can expect. But straight from you, you're going to talk about your life, and you're going to talk about your passion, and you're going to give not just information to our listeners that'll help them grow, but you're going to show them practical steps of how to do it. But if you guarantee one truth or one lesson or one potentially life-changing event that could come from the show, truth, what is that you guarantee our listeners, if they listen to the end, they're going to get from this episode?
They will find ways to be able to shift how they're feeling and maybe come up with some action plans to change their life or their health.
All right. And all of us need that at different times, probably sometimes multiple times a day, right?
Absolutely. You got that one right.
All right. So let's do this, Sophia. Where are you from? What was your background like? Did you grow up in this type of mentality and environment, or is it something you was polar opposite and you learned? So let's just go chronologically through your life. Where were you born? Where did it
So
start?
I was born in the US, and then I moved to Greece when I was 5. And I come from a medical background, and my parents were quite older. So kind of pretty much strict parenting. And I moved to Greece, and I somehow didn't fully fit in, but I was an okay child, no problems, no challenges in school, but I had a very challenging upbringing at home. But I knew how to behave at school, do what's supposed to be done. I went to a good high school, very good high school, And I was pretty busy because I could not sit still. I wasn't happy. Whatever it is that was in me based on what was happening, I was unhappy. And my only desire was to leave, get educated, and have a new life. So I left, came back to where I was born, got my education, and thinking that climbing the corporate ladder was going to make me happy. And after each accomplishment, I would get more depressed than I was before. You would think, I finished an undergrad, got a good job, that I would be happy. Somehow that plan was not working for me very well, though I didn't do any drugs or alcohol or any of that nature. But this complete unrest, not being able to sit still and deal with my emotions. And life came, people came and went. And then there was a challenging experience that I faced. I had a breakup with someone I dearly cared at the time. And all I wanted was out of life. That's all I wanted. So my words kept on saying, this is too much for me. I can't take it. I can't deal with these emotions. And what did the universe give me? An experience that I was going to be taken out. And that's exactly what happened to me. I had a surgery that did not need to have, which I was not expected to live. And it went sideways. So my lungs collapsed. Well, let's backtrack. I went unconscious, my lungs collapsed, and then my organs shut down, and I was expected to die. But somehow, 23 days later, I'm alive in really bad health. Really, my physical body was in a mess, and I couldn't walk. I mean, there were tons of ailments. Naming them all doesn't make a difference at this point, but I lived. And then at that point, I realized there has to be something wrong with this picture. A healthy person, very healthy, because regardless of my stress, I was extremely healthy. I was a runner. I was in very good shape, worked out every day, ate very healthy, didn't drink. It didn't make sense how overnight this could happen. So I went, and they wanted to remove some of my organs, and I refused. I had enough medical knowledge to refuse. I regretted to consenting to that surgery because I intuitively knew, and I even said that I didn't need it. Anyway, to make a long story short, now I start searching how to heal. So a number of years go by. I end up at prestigious universities, went to every chair you could possibly think. I probably had over 100 appointments, 25 chairs. And I am not healing. I would patch the condition and symptoms would come back. And it was a regular saga. I would be gone for 3 weeks, three times a year for treatments just to get a few months of relief, not full relief, temporary relief. And then I said, I can't live my life. There has to be something else. So I started reading Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And that made a lot of sense to me. It really, with my medical background, made tons of sense how the brain works, how the body responds, how your thoughts affect your body. But there was something missing in the formula. One, he would say, you need to master your emotions. And I would say, what emotions? I was so disconnected from my body because it was in so much pain, so much disconnected from reality that I didn't know what that was. I had heard of EFT and I said, this is not possible to work. That was my first thing. And I had heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza before. And I said, you know what? I have a master's degree in epidemiology. What he's saying, he's making it out of his head. But, in desperation, I went back and we read the stuff, made sense. So I decided to try EFT.
And define what EFT is. Not all our listeners know what that is.
It's emotional freedom techniques. So it's a healing modality that uses a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and tapping on the body's meridians or the acupressure points. So having acupuncture without needles, and the combination of both is believed that it moves stuck emotions, or emotions, I should say, that were not processed is a better word. So I met this lovely practitioner, and the first thing she said is, "You're very angry." And I looked at myself because I had never expressed anger. And I said, "Oh, this woman must be wrong." But to make a long story short, she was absolutely right. And my emotions just kept on pouring and pouring. And then 18 months later, a combination with Dr. Joe Dispenza's teaching and regular tapping every day, I started to heal. I started to forgive. I started to see how my thoughts and actions had attracted unfortunate experiences in my life. It's not like I said, "Oh, here, come and torment me, or come and kill me." It's just my negative thought processing and my stress level was attracting all these unfortunate experiences.
So going back, we went through a lot of ground. First off, we'll go right back to your childhood. Were you an only child? Did you have multiple children?
Multiple siblings, but we did not all grow together under the same household. And for a number of years, my father was not present. They weren't divorced, but he hadn't moved with us. So I was growing up with my mom and one of my siblings.
Okay. And then what was your mom's view on life? Is that what you had until what we're describing this
Yeah, my
moment?
mom was very religious, and believed in the church and believed that if you don't do certain things, you're going to go to hell, and didn't question anything, but was very unhappy in her life, had a lot of trauma in her life that she did not heal or didn't know how to process, and was emotionally unavailable or emotionally erratic, which is why I learned not to feel, because I saw the extreme of having emotions out of control. And I thought it was better just to not show or feel any emotion. So, which is how I picked up that pattern.
Got you.
And but I had a roof over my head. I went to a good school. I didn't have anything extra. I didn't have all the added finances or extra stuff that kids get, but I did have a roof over my head. And there were some other unpleasant experiences that took place in my home. But other than that, a very controlling environment. And I didn't like the restrictions. And I didn't fit in with the model, "Don't question anything." And I think what saved me in my life is questioning, is what you're delivering, is that true, or is there another option? And that inquisitive nature I always had as a child.
Okay. So now you're older, you're working in corporate America, you go through a terrible breakup, and that kind of sets up the dominoes to fall the wrong direction, right? How
Correct.
old were you at that point,
I
roughly?
was 35, and I had many breakups before, but this one was the one that actually affected me. So none of the other ones did affect. I ended up reconnecting with that person years down the road, but at the time it was a very abrupt, and I couldn't process my emotions at all.
Okay. And so now you have a surgery, and it seems like we can withstand as humans, but then there's just a one feather that's put on the load and everything breaks, right? So
Correct.
this surgery was that for you. What were some of the steps that you remember taking? Like we talked about, you got connected with Joe Dispenza, and we talked about how you started tapping. So take us through a practical, like your start, your beginning, or how you recommend people starting, because people maybe never heard of it, and the people who have heard of it don't really know how to do it. So if they were like, "Yeah, I got emotional trauma. How do I get rid of it?" Where would you take them to begin?
Okay, so first of all, I think knowledge is very essential, because if you don't understand why it works and how it works, you're not going to have faith in it, which is why the first time I dismissed what I read, and I didn't give it a chance, and I had to go back to it. So I would suggest to people to look up what emotional freedom techniques is, and specifically clinical EFT, which is tested EFT. And people go through a rigorous training for it, and see what the research indicates. And I can clearly tell you off the bat, there are over 300 studies, and one of them has indicated that you can downregulate 6 genes of stress, and one of them is cortisol, right? So that has an impact in the body. So after we know why it works or how it works, actually they can start tapping on their own. And the formula is very simple, very straightforward. What is it that I'm feeling? Okay, connect with the body, because the body has wisdom. So I'm feeling anger and I'm feeling it in my gut. Okay, what is the event in the present moment that's creating? And why do I say the present moment? Because creation is in the present moment. But what if the event happened yesterday? Well, thinking about it right now makes it into the present moment. Okay, or if it's something in the future, thinking about my doctor's appointment tomorrow. So always in the now. So connecting what the event is. So where am I feeling it? What it is that I'm feeling, and measure it on a scale of 1 to 10. Why do I do that? There's a reason why we do that. Is because after the tapping sequence, we are going to see that it dropped. And so you're doing a biofeedback loop to yourself, reaffirming that this practice works. And you go about tapping on the body's meridians. Now we create a sentence. Even though I have this anger in my gut because someone stole my car, right? And I balance it at the end. I'm open to feeling this. I'm open to seeing things differently. I'm open to finding a place of peace. The traditional one that they say is I deeply and completely love and accept myself. In the beginning, a lot of people do not love themselves, so I don't use that. The phrase has to resonate with the person, because if it doesn't resonate, you're not going to buy into it, right? So we tap and we see the emotion starts to relieve. And let's just chat what emotions are. So emotions are automatic chemicals that get produced in the body from the limping brain when something happens. Emotions are not the same thing as feelings. Okay, and we know that emotions linger 90 seconds to 2 minutes, when most people would be surprised to that. So let's say I heard it's in the middle of the night and I heard something breaking in the kitchen. There's an arousal, or I got startled. That would be considered an emotion. It's an automatic chemical production that happens in the body. And if the person doesn't feel it or process it at that time, that chemical signature stays in the cells, which is why emotions, which are energy in motions, are meant to be felt. And we've disconnected, and I did disconnect from my body, and I didn't feel anything. Now, feelings are the attributes we put to what we think our emotion is, and we put a story with it. And then that looping started. I can't believe he stole my car, and now I don't have a car, and when will I get a new car? And then the new thought now triggers more chemistry, and now there's a loophole of the body getting filled with more and more low frequency chemistry. And that's how emotions get stuck in the body, if that makes sense. I gave a little bit more detailed explanation than the average.
No, that's great. So you said that your mother's model was kind of shut down feelings and emotion. You learned to shut down feelings and emotion. So there's a lot of people that they actually block out. I mean, everybody knows, you'll read about it, you'll hear about it, you'll talk to, you might have experienced it. They have blackouts in their memory. They don't remember parts of their childhood or their adulthood because it was just so painful they shut it off. And some people numb themselves. Like they think, oh, I'm not sad, I'm not super happy, I'm just indifferent. That's okay. When indifference is probably the worst place to be, right? So if you didn't have your emotions fully firing, how do you go from that numbness to re-engaging the feelings and the emotions?
That was a process, and it's a very scary process, because you think those, first of all, you don't like the bodily sensation that comes from the emotion. There's like a knot or a tightness or a restriction, or the anxiety might be fast heart rate. So in the beginning, it feels very uncomfortable and very scary, but staying present while you're tapping and breathing in the abdomen is key. Most people don't stress that. The breath in the belly calms the body down. And furthermore, the tapping, as you're tapping on your hand or your eyebrows or wherever it is you're tapping, is giving the body a message of safety. There's no tiger chasing me, because if there was a tiger there, you wouldn't be tapping right now. So I had a very good practitioner, and she would keep me focused, because when you're not used to emotions, you like to go into your head and create stories. And I also didn't like the breathing, and I had a difficult time breathing. I still sometimes have resistance. And she was a heavy-set older woman, and she would say, stand up and breathe. I said, I can't. Says, I have COPD and I'm twice your age and I can breathe and you can't. So stand up and breathe. So it was over Zoom. She was, I think she was very instrumental, and I did. And in the beginning, just like a garbage container gets opened and the smell comes out, all my emotions got flooded. So I had a lot of anxiety the first few weeks. And then the fear of death arose, because that's the one that I had disconnected the most, the one that I was expected in the hospital to experience. And I had to process that. It only actually, once I decided to process it, it only took one evening and it was over and done with. But I got tormented for months because I was avoiding it. So within an evening, it was resolved, and that excessive terror of death never came back to me. Do I have a fear of death? Yeah, I have a little bit of a fear of death. I do have it, but not to the point it was before. So that's how I did. I was consistent. I just knew, because every time after each session, I felt different, and there were glimpses of hope and glimpses of joy, which I had never felt before. I was just tapping, and then this pocket of joy would show up. It wouldn't last, 2 days. I do remember working on a traumatic memory from my child, and it lasted a whole evening. I had created a belief that my parents didn't care for me, especially my father. And once it was cleared, I had this feeling of joy overwhelm me for a whole evening and even more. So I knew that the tapping process was working. I had evidence. So I continued. And then at some point, I made a decision to become a practitioner, because I saw, both by controlling your thoughts, actions, behaviors, and emotions, and know how to process your emotions, now you can change your reality, and you can change how the body is reacting to the environment and start feeling safe. I was one of those people that I was always surveilling my environment, always a high edge. I couldn't always what's going on, couldn't sit still, couldn't sit in one place. And now I'm the polar extreme.
So I'm feelings and emotions. We got listeners all over the world. And what you said is they're two different things. And I think so many people use them interchangeably. So you said automatic emotions, there's an automatic chemical production, it's energy in motion. And feelings are the looping sequences based on our thoughts.
And the labeling of the emotion. So we put a label. I'll give a perfect example. So I woke up, I'm sleeping, and it's 4 a.m. and I hear something break, or someone trying to open my door, or something at my door. Let's make it something open my door, right? So there's an arousal that it's universal. Everybody who hears that noise in the middle of the night is going to be aroused. That's your emotion, right? It's an automatic chemistry to alert you there's something's happening. So now I wake up and I go and I see it's the cat pushing the door, whatever, some dog or animal pushing the door. So I have two ways I could label the feeling. I'm angry and I start looping why this cat is woke me up, or for the same emotion, I have relief. Oh my goodness, thank goodness there is not a criminal trying to get in or someone trying to break in. Same arousal, different labeling. Right? So the labeling with the mental looping is the feeling. Usually the feelings, we have a negative labeling. that coworker, it's his fault why this is happening to me. And we go angry and we keep on replaying it. And as we replaying it, there's more chemistry that's getting produced because the body's getting aroused. And that's how the body, the physical body, becomes the subconscious mind. Candace Perth got the Nobel Prize that the body is the subconscious mind. So 95% of your automatic reactions is the body, which has been programmed into it. And 5% is your conscious awareness. And why is it so hard for people to change? Let's say I want to stop drinking, right? My 5% says, I drank yesterday, I'm so sick to my stomach, I'm going to quit tomorrow. But the body has been programmed and now has been addicted to that emotion, that relief I get the temporarily when I get the alcohol, the dopamine effect, right? And now my 5% is trying to fight the 95%. Well, who's going to win? The 5%, till I get to align my thoughts, my actions, and behaviors, right? And I have to find a will greater than my body to overcome both the physical addiction, because the body's addicted to the alcohol, and the emotional addicted because of there's an emotion that I'm trying to avoid below the drinking, but I get a temporarily relief. It's that relief that I need to overcome. So you see how difficult and challenging it becomes, but the solution does lie by tackling and stoning away the emotion. That's what's going to ultimately resolve the limiting beliefs and all the patterns. And the body is going to heal, because the body's trying to give you a message with its emotions, not its feelings, with its emotions. It's our GPS system.
Yeah, and that makes total sense because a lot of people too, we all as humans, we may avoid something we know is good for us. And when we do it, love it. For instance, working out. People may not work out and they know they need to work out. They know when they do work out, they feel great, but something's keeping them from doing it in their brain, right? So let's finish your story and maybe go back to that to work through an illustration with our audience to maybe how they can overcome something like that. So now you're 35, you're finding all this information, you're seeing how it connects in your reality. It's not just frou-frou, it's actually working and changing your mindset. Where's your life go from there, Sophia?
Well, after I get sick, I go to this wild goose chase till I ended up, I think, following these teachings. And then I started to feel happier and starting to realize that I can change my reality and I can change how I react to the environment. So I don't need to react. So my default was anger, but the anger was internal. So I would complain in my head, right? So I'd be angry at a person. Sometimes I would externalize it. And I now realize that was harming my body, because the body doesn't like those frequency emotions. The body does well in neutrality, in peaceful emotions, because those are very taxing. And I'll explain why they're taxing. When we're angry or we have fear, cortisol level goes up and we activate the sympathetic nervous system. And when that stress response is activated for too long and it's not shut off, the body is headed for disease. And I made a conscious choice that I cannot live my life miserable on meds. And that's basically what I did. And I offered the opportunity that we're not different. So I have nothing special than anybody else. We're all equipped at least with the same physical body mechanism. And if we can tap into these old ancient teachings, what the Buddha said, what you resist persists, right? And to feel our emotions. The Buddha was very big on observing the emotions as energy and moving. And on the contrary, they make fun of the Buddha of his belly, thinking he was chunky and fat. The reason the Buddha has a big belly is he was trying to show abdominal breathing. And if we master these little tools over a period of time, not overnight, I don't promise overnight, But some people do have overnight successes. I was a slow learner. You can change your life and to become more peaceful, and then your reality starts changing. And you start doing what matters to you. And the biggest thing is I was able to forgive. That was very important to me. And I was able to reconnect with that person and have a better relationship. And that was very meaningful for me because I saw where I contributed based on my own limiting beliefs and emotions, why I wasn't opening up.
And then where'd your life go from there? Bring us from there to today.
Well, now I do this for a living. So I left healthcare, and I also teach a course, Change Your Mind, Create New Results, which is a Dr. Joe Dispenza course, how to identify what's triggering you in your environment, how to overcome your body, your environment, and time in order to create what you want, and how to change your brain waves, right? Because when you're angry and anxious, no new information can come into your brain. In order to change your reality, you have to change your brain waves. You have to be in the flow as the athletes are, right? They go into the flow. And when we're in the flow, synchronicity comes into our lives. And I enjoy seeing transformation in people. I want to give to the world what was given to me. And I want to dispel the belief that the only model for healing is the medical model. It actually is not. There's many other modalities that exist for healing.
No, absolutely. I mean, in our country, the medical model is probably the worst you can take. It's
That's
not
correct.
a healthcare system, it's a financial institution,
You got that one right.
and it's run by the government. So,
And by Google, because they
yeah,
are pharmaceuticals.
yeah. It's there's no such thing as a conspiracy theory when it's real. People
Yeah.
say it's conspiracy theory. I'm like, yeah, look how many things that people were said in the last 4 years that were conspiracy theory, and now every one of them's proven true, and nobody talks about that on CNN. So, okay, you talk about how to reflect, and we'll say, what am I feeling? And then where am I feeling it? Because physically, like for me, like when I get upset, I feel like it's in the front of my head, almost like a heaviness. And then what caused the feeling? And then you give it a 10 scale. Is there any other steps that I missed in identifying like what's going on? Why am I so depressed? Why am I so angry? Or are
Uh,
those the core steps?
no, well, I missed how we make the basic recipe, so let's discuss it. So I started with even though. Why do I do even though? Because I don't want to stick what I'm saying in my reality. So even though I'm so angry and I feel it in my forehead, right? I'm angry because my podcast did not show up. I'm just making something up, right?
Yeah.
And I am open to letting this go. I am open to see this differently, whatever little positive ending you can give it. So we tap 3 times on the side of the hand, because why here we change the polarity of the body. Just for people know, you have a plus charge on the head and a negative charge on the body, and we have an electromagnetic field around the body. We have a toric field. So when we tap on the side of the hand 3 times by making that sentence, we neutralize the polarity, or we reverse the polarity, I should say. And then we go through the various meridian points, which is the top of the head, in the middle of the eyebrows, side, under the nose, the chin, the thymus gland here on the chest, under the arms, and under the breast, which is the anger point. And then the wrists and the top of the wrist. As you're tapping, you can just then say whatever it is you're feeling. You don't even need to look up scripts. This anger in my forehead that doesn't seem to want to go away. This anger in my forehead. I can't believe I confirmed. I sent a text to this podcast guest. I booked my appointment. I gave her a special time and she didn't show up. Right? So you're just expressing what you want to express. It's that unexpressed words plus putting your awareness on this tension in your forehead that actually will let the energy move. A lot of people feel a heat, they feel a tightness, they actually feel it move. Once you get a few sessions, you literally start feeling it, or you start yawning, it's moving. And that actually changes your brain waves. And so that's a significant part. Let's discuss limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are held, so emotions hold limiting beliefs. It's not the other way around. So one emotion can hold numerous limiting beliefs. If you release that emotion, you're going to start releasing these limiting beliefs, and you're going to have a cognitive shift. You're going to say, oh my God, I've been believing this. I don't need to believe this anymore. Or this the behavior that I'm doing is really harming me. But once the emotion is gone, the addiction to behave that way is no longer there. So EFT is great on limiting beliefs, and it's great on trauma. So trauma is memories that didn't get time stamped correctly, and I'll address in a second what time stamp. The person wasn't able to process. They were 5 years old and they saw their mother being beaten up, right? As a child, you couldn't react because you knew if you voiced or said something, maybe it would be you that was next. So that chemistry stayed in the body. It never got processed. And here you are, 40 years old. Every time you see someone similar to the person who beat up your mom, you feel that tightness, right? So that's a traumatic memory that the brain took picture frames, but it didn't get time stamped, and many emotions are processed in that one image. It's stored in the hippocampus as high definition. Once we go back and we never relive the trauma, we only release the emotion, we have techniques from a distance, then that memory can be reprocessed, time-stamped correctly, and be stored in the neocortex. And eventually the trigger goes, because that chemistry that was in the body giving you that automatic reaction is gone. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pavlov experiment with the dogs. You
Yep.
rang. Okay, so we get programmed ourselves. All you
And
need.
for our listeners, though, we'll go through it quickly. Pavlov did experiments that are documented in the psychology field, especially, and he associated feeding a dog with ringing a bell. And then when he stopped feeding them, he'd ring the bell and their mouth would still salivate. That's the test you're talking about, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
just to give our listeners a quick, I mean, that's like a 10-second summary, but that was a Pavlov experiment. You can Google it and that'll come up even though they're communists.
So these traumatic experiences program us. So it could be an image and an emotion, a stimulus and a response, and we get programmed. So triggers can get you. Like certain people, for whatever reason, are terrified to fly, either because they watched a movie or something happened to them. And we can go and heal those traumatic memories. The only suggestion I have, I don't recommend the individual working on traumatic memories. It is not a good idea. And why did I say timestamp? Because everything you've done in your life is recorded, like we have in a movie, image, and each image is timestamped, and it's recorded in your brain, right? So these traumatic memories don't have the proper timestamping, which is why they get activated all the time, or they get stuck, like with the old 45 records where the needle got stuck and it's not moving. So it keeps on replaying in your head, but you're not aware of it. It's unconscious to you. And that is taxing your body. People who are traumatized do that unconsciously. And I was doing it. I was always surveilling my environment, searching. And it would be, I couldn't hear certain things well, even though the person said it to me. And there was a time delay. I'd say, oh, you said that. But my first thing, what did you say? And that was because I was constantly surveilling my environment. People who have learned to not feel safe always scan their environment. I don't do that anymore. I hear what you said the first time around.
So yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. I have that exact problem. I don't hear. I even went to the point to get a hearing test, and the lady was like, "Were you a soldier?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "You have every sign of PTSD, whatever, post-traumatic stress disorder." I didn't believe her. And then I had like 5 doctors tell me at different people, and sure enough, there's something emotional with my brain where I'm always in this fight mode and I don't hear. So you can be standing across a room and I'm like, what? What? But I guess physiologically I have zero problems. So how, from listeners like me and you back then, how do you address that? How do you overcome that?
Well, I addressed those memories that triggered so it has to do with your vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is activated, and I wasn't feeling safe, right? So I addressed some of those memories, and eventually I did a lot of tapping with it. Now I feel safe and I can be fully present. I don't need to scan unconsciously my environment. It was an automatic behavior that I was doing, but it was uncomfortable because my friend would say something and I would say, "What did you say?" And then a minute later, I had it. It was like with a 30-second time delay that I got it. He would joke with me and says, "You know what? I'm not going to say what I said because 30 seconds, you're going to know." But it was embarrassing. It was my automatic reaction. And it was from some memories from the age of 5. So most of our behaviors and our patterns get started from in the womb, believe it or not, the first trimester in the womb, because the mother is connected with the embryo. So there's chemistry that's going. So if the mother feels fear, it's going to transfer to the child and continues till 7. I tend to stretch it till 13, till the developmental phase, because some people don't change brain waves at the age of 7. And I'll explain why this age group. When the baby is first born, they're in delta brain waves, which is why babies sleep all the time. And probably in the womb, the baby sleeps most of the time, right? So delta brain waves are programmable brain waves. Then as you get a little older, you get alpha brain waves, which we use in hypnosis. Again, programmable brain waves. There's no critical thinking. After the age of 7, critical thinking and analytical mind comes in, which is beta brain waves. And now you can say this fits in or doesn't fit in, but the personality has to have been developed a bit. And if the person hasn't matured, because there are some people who don't mature till a little later, which is why I stretch it till about 13. So these are your development. And most of my patterns were especially from the ages of 5 till 13. And those are the ones that I cleared for myself.
Yeah. So how do you identify and clear them? So like you're going back, like you don't even realize why you feel that way. Where's the process start to
Um,
identify them?
okay, so in the beginning, my childhood was completely blocked. So I did not remember my parents and growing up because it was challenging for me. But in the tapping sequence, I would tap and I would say, well, the practitioner was also very good. And I do the same thing. She trained me very well. She would ask, is there a similar time that you had that feeling? And I couldn't remember. And then I would say, and I ask my subconscious mind to bring me any memories. In the beginning, they were showing up in the evening as dreams. Then eventually I started getting them throughout the day. And there were few memories that showed up at the age of 2 that had a significant impact for me that I went and cleared. And that changed, both changed me, but also changed the relationship with the person that was estranged for 35 years. It actually healed the relationship.
Now, is it the same like I've heard a lot of people say, change our frequency. And, is that the same as clearing, two separate things? They both work
So,
hand in hand?
yeah, so each emotion has a certain frequency, right? So we measure it in a logarithmic scale. There's the famous maps of consciousness from the psychiatrist, Dr. David Hawkins. And if I remember well, shame is on 20 on the logarithmic scale, which means it's a very low frequency emotion. Frequency is what measures vibration, how the emotion vibrates, right? So when we clear a low frequency emotion, we can bring in a new emotion. And if it's love, it's going to be 500 in the logarithmic scale, right? So that's a big difference. So by clearing low frequency emotions in the body, automatically your frequency changes just because it got cleared. Imagine your body as a container that has stored everything you've experienced, and there's no room to put anything else. So you need to clear, which means you need to transmute that memory to neutral or to forgiveness or to love, right? So in the same container, the bottle is full of all these emotions and things that are in there, but you transmuted it and you're putting it in the same space. Now the average of the body and your own frequency is raising. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always pictured, and I don't want to confuse our audience, but I always picture it as like it's like radio stations. And as you're turning it through, one might have country, one might have rock and roll, one might have gospel music. When you're on
Absolutely.
different frequencies, you're going to get that type of response.
Yes.
But my life, I've always wondered how to identify what frequency is 98.6, right? What is 98.6? Is that happiness? Is that death? You know what I mean? So once I know which frequency I want to be on, how do I get there? Those are questions I have, and I'm sure listeners
Okay.
have all over the
So
world.
in the beginning, you don't know what the emotions, well, the feelings, because the emotion is the physical sensation, and we label them with feelings. So in the beginning, you do not know what they are. But as you connect, you won't know always exactly what it is, but you will figure out shortly what it is that you're labeling it. And there's certain locations in the body. So let's take an example.
Well,
Uh,
before you go on, I actually want to ask this question. You said love is 500, for instance, and
yeah.
you said something else was 20. What was the other one?
Shame was 20 and unconditional love is 540. And let's address, since you brought it up, anything above 540, which is unconditional love to joy, does miracles and healing automatically. If you are in that frequency 24/7, that's where miracles happen. And these are all based on the maps of consciousness. They're not mine. 200 is neutrality, and anything below 200 is a body and life depleting, which means the body gets diseased and there's force. Anything above 200, which is, neutrality, and sometimes it's close to courage, it is power and life affirming. It's a very nice chart. They can Google it online. And it also shows what it does to the body and what our life view is and what the view of God is based on that map. So now to answer your question, in the beginning, you're not going to know. Eventually, you will know, you know what, this feels like shame. And then you start identifying, and now it feels dense. Once you start being inhabited with these higher frequency emotions, the lower one are not going to feel well. Now, if you've kind of cleared some or transmuted some, now you can consciously choose what you want to feel. You can bring positive memories at will or do a gratitude journal and start shifting. Now you shifted your TV channel or your tuner to go to the channel you want. In the beginning, it's very hard for the person. Imagine a seesaw. I think that's what you call when you play, right? It's tilted this way, right? So you can't go up, which is where EFT helps. You've cleared a lot of stuff, and now the scale kind of starts moving. Once you're at the flexibility point, now you can start raising consciously and say, you know what? Today, I'm going to feel better. I'll give you an example. I had a session this morning. I was very happy out of nowhere because I taught these people overseas and they had a change in their life. They had never heard this stuff. And they saw some patterns and they were working on themselves for years. And that brought me joy. Then I looked at my email. Something would happen with my insurance. I got angry and got pissed off. And then I said, you know what? I don't want to stay in this feeling. I'm going to address it. And I'm going to keep on remembering the feeling I had when I spoke to these ladies today, that they were so happy that they saw these patterns before that they never saw in their lives. And they had hope for their future. So that, and then of course your call came and I was excited to be here. And that incident is over and done with. I didn't loop anymore. I addressed it and it went on. I'm not carrying it on. Though in the past, it would linger for a week to 10 days. I would be ruminating on it because I was addicted to that frequency, let's say, or that feeling is a better word.
Okay. So would you say you have to break the cycle? You have to change the frequency? How do you go from that obsessive rumination and probably most people who are stuck in it, I think, are problem solving. They're trying to problem solve, but they don't know how. They don't have a solution. They don't have a frame of reference. They just don't know how to deal with it. Would you agree with that or
Uh,
not?
yes, and I'm going to address why analysis is paralysis. Okay. When we analyze, we're in beta brainwaves. Beta brainwaves does not bring the universal mind or higher intuition inside the body. So I'm going to start with this premise that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and intuition comes from the other realms, right? So the beta brainwaves does not connect you with the universal quantum field. And the mind that created the problem cannot solve it. So when we ruminate and we analyze, we make the problem worse. How do we break the addiction? By neutralizing the emotion. So that's where EFT comes in. Once we neutralize the emotion, and you do 2 rounds, we're not talking a whole day here. You do 2 or 3 rounds on this particular thing. Now you've neutralized it. Now information can start pouring in. And say, you know what, there's another way here. Now I can use my analytical brain because it's not in high beta brain waves. It's in low beta to alpha, and say, you know what, let me use my neocortex and let me find a solution to this problem. Imagine someone who's in a rage and is beating someone up, and you go up to him and say, stop it, or take a breath. They're going to look at you, what? They're going to beat you up too, because they're addicted to this rage and this emotion. So because they're addicted on that adrenaline, that rush of that anger, and it's a feedback loop. I'm sure you've met people who like to tick you off, and they engage by being nasty all the time, right? I'm sure you've met those people in your life. The best thing to do with them is not feed them, or not engage with them. So we do the same thing with the body. We neutralize the emotion, and now we stop the thinking process. Now solution can come. We are not feeding that negative feeling anymore.
And that can be so hard because especially if, you're 35 years old, 55 years old, and your whole life you've done it because that's all you've known. So how do you stop? Like if you were to say, hey, this is a very basic 1, 2, 3. Try this at home and then let's talk. What do you recommend, Sophia, for people to start getting their thoughts under control?
To slow down a little bit and to be present and to be okay if they don't succeed. I did not succeed right away, right? Because by the time all of this boiled down, years being sick, I'm in my 50s, right? So I can heal 50 years in 1 month. It took me 18 months or so, right? So it's just a process. What they do is take one step at a time, be present, and stop the automatic behavior as much as they can, whether that's drinking alcohol or writing a nasty email. Wait 5 minutes, connect with your body, just to be aware of it, not to force the emotion away, just to observe it. And then if you want to pick up a tapping practice, you can do that. But just those steps, you will notice you're feeling better and you're more in control. Like sometimes I might be stressed and I want to eat something, and I know I'm not hungry. So I'll wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then I don't really even want to eat because it's not important. Why did I want to eat? Because I was feeling an uncomfortable, and I'm on the skinny sides anyway. I don't overeat, but occasionally I do that, right? Because there's an uncomfortable sensation that's in the body. Or one of my other patterns is getting busy on a project, is searching something or researching. Most people go shopping. I don't do that anymore. So take a break. I'm not going to do it for 20 minutes. Let's observe what it is that I'm feeling in order to experience this. Not why am I feeling this? What is it that I'm feeling in order to have this experience? And put your attention, in your case, not picking on you,
You can pick
put
on
your
me.
attention,
That's what we're here for. We're here to hear your story and help
this
people.
migraine or headache in the headache.
It's
Okay.
actually, I feel tired. It's like from the frontal, I've had this since around 2014, where it's like the front of my head just feels heavy and tired, but I can be physically active. I can be not active and I feel tired. And then one day I was playing basketball with guys and I wasn't even sweating. I'm like, man, I'm so tired. And they're like dripping with sweat. And that was when I realized it doesn't matter if I'm playing basketball or sitting on the couch. I just feel this heavy fatigue in my head and it ties to like a sadness and a depression. So how do I get rid of that? How do I change that frequency?
Okay, putting your awareness, welcoming it, and see if it has a message for you. So what I do in EFT, just a quick process without going, first, I deal with the emotion of sadness. I clear the emotion of whatever it is, it's in your head, right? Because a lot of times we don't like the feeling or the tiredness or the physical pain. So there's an automatic reaction we have. Once that's clear, I imagine this energy of sadness and tiredness. I put it in front of me in a chair as if it's a ball. I ask it what it's feeling towards me, because that's an energy field that has a feeling towards me. And usually that works for me. And once I clear it that way, it leaves. The first lesson I learned is I don't force this energy, even though I don't like the tiredness, I don't force it to leave. I observe it by asking it questions. That's what makes it leave, not forcing it and not wanting it to leave, right? So imagine as if these little parts are parts of you, different inhabitants, like all your children, and you say to your child, I don't like you, leave. What is it going to do? It's going to get angry and pissed off. You want me to leave? I'll give you some more pain. See how that is, right? So I imagine all of these sensations in the body as little entities that make the body as a whole. And by questioning it and just observing it without judgment, I've been very good with headaches. That's one thing that I'm very good at. I put my awareness on it. I breathe in my belly and headaches leave. I'm not very good with other types of pain, but that's one pain that always leaves by me putting my awareness on it.
For your own life, or you're saying with your clients?
Well, for my own life, my clients, I usually
Yeah.
work with some clients. We put their awareness on whatever it is. I have a female that has a lot of tightness and heat in her chest. Sometimes she has backstabbing in her back. And, you know, a lot of them are literal. The energy came from a person who backstabbed her. So,
Yeah. So going back to like, there's people who have so many blocks and they know like, I'm going to eat this half gallon of ice cream. I'm going to feel like trash tomorrow. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to feel worse about myself, but they do it anyways. How does that fit into what you do? Can you help with?
absolutely. First of all, EFT is great for eating disorders and addictions. So they're eating the tub of ice cream because there's a bodily sensation or a feeling that they feel they aren't able to process and handle. And so the temporary distraction of the ice cream, because there is a sensation of eating and the fixation on the ice cream and the obsession of eating this ice cream, they got a relief of 5 minutes, however long it took to eat the ice cream. This is classic for eating disorders, that they go on a binge for an hour. Then after that is over, the misery comes back. But that misery is less than the actual feeling that they were avoiding. And if people can realize there is another feeling that's causing the craving for the ice cream or whatever the problem is, or it's a shopping spree or a drug addiction, if they resolve that, their behavioral pattern and the addiction is going to fall away. Now, the body likes the familiar. So even if you're doing something bad to the body, as long as it's familiar, the body's not going to say this is bad or good for me. So if you've learned to cope with a tub of ice cream, eating it, that's what the body is continuing, because you've given the message to the body, me feeling that other emotion that came from childhood, it's not safe for me to feel. It's going to continue bringing you that trigger to eat the tub of ice cream. And it becomes a vicious circle, and it becomes an ugly circle, because you can never get off the hamster wheel. And it's really sad, because you're beating yourself up, and now you have the guilt, and now you have the shame, and now you have the body weight and all the rest, and now you're in distraught. But if you clear that original emotion, and it doesn't have to take years. So one benefit EFT happens. So you could be 2 years in therapy, and tapping could clear the same issues in 5 or 6 sessions. So there's a big difference.
Yeah. So now for you, your story, you start again to Joe Dispenza, and you start again to coach or a counselor. I don't what would be called with EFT. Is it coaching,
An
counseling?
EFT practitioner, clinical EFT practitioner. Yeah, and I do some other modalities with it. Yes.
Okay, so now you're in your journey, in your story, Sophia, you're on this journey. Take us from there to today.
What do you mean from there?
I'm
Well,
sorry, when you were 35 and everything fell apart and you start using these techniques, how long did it take you? And between there and today, how did
okay,
your life
so I
change?
didn't find these modalities till I was in my 50s, just so you know. So
Oh,
I
okay.
lived 16 years of pure misery, of constantly being sick. And I had tried everything known on planet Earth, whether that was Psyche, EMDR, hypnosis, nothing was working for me. Then later on, it took 18 months to see, with EFT and Joe Dispenza's teaching, I had some improvement, a little improvement with Dr. Joe, but no healing for a few months. But then 18 months straight with EFT and Joe's teachings and meditation, that took 18 months to turn the body around. And then I'm a work in progress. So there's other stuff that I'm working on. As for my childhood memories, they seem to, most of them have vanished. It's like they're there, but there's no reaction to it. As for the hospital experience, it's there, but I don't have the anger anymore. And those 23 days that I was in the hospital, that's the emotional charge is gone. Now that memory, the hospital experience, took me 4 months to clear, because I went in picture frame by picture. That's something I chose. Not everybody had to do that. That was very traumatic for me. So, there was a lot of morphine involved, and the body shutting down, because I was at the end stages of life. I made a decision to work on it picture frame by picture frame. I don't recommend necessarily for that, unless it's something super traumatic someone wants to work. But yeah, does my childhood, I was able to forgive my parents. I actually realized they did the best they could given the circumstances. And if I had to choose them again, I would choose them again and just do it a little differently.
Right.
So, and I wouldn't be able to say that 7, 8 years ago.
Amen. Yeah.
I would say I chose my parents. I think something wrong. It's not possible I could have chosen my parents. That's not physical possible. And now I see why my upbringing and my medical background was there. And now I have discernment. So now I can see certain things the medical model offers. And it's a patch. It never deals with the actual cause of the disease, which is why the disease keeps on reoccurring in different parts of the body, right? Once you heal what we call the original imprint, that disease should never show up again in the body, because you took out the root cause, right? So, perfect example that someone else teaches it. You have a flood in the basement, right? You at least see water in the basement, right? So you go and clear the water in the basement. The next day's water again in the basement. This can go on for years. But the broken pipe is on the 3rd floor. So till you fix the broken pipe on the 3rd floor, the basement's going to keep on getting flooded. So medicine keeps on clearing the water on the basement. They've overlooked the broken pipe on the 3rd floor. Once you clear the broken pipe, there will be no more water in the basement. So I know people may have gotten overwhelmed, but actually it's not an overwhelming story. It's at the end of the day, you take control of your life, you take control of your own emotions, and then eventually it turns out that very little outside of you is going to affect you. And what you get from this process by knowing and attuning with your emotions, which is your GPS system, that's what it was meant for, you can see what's a true conspiracy and what is not a true conspiracy, have discernment, know whether to trust the person or not trust the person. And now you have less pitfalls in your life. And those traumatic memories that are haunting you eventually seem to kind of fade away. It's like I asked you, what did you eat last week? And you say to me, oh, Sophia, I can't remember what I ate last week, because it wasn't important, unless, of course, it was a great meal that it was out of this world, right? So we want these traumatic memories to kind of fade away with what I ate last week. I don't know, probably something that I cooked, right? That's what we want them to do. We don't want them to be active because they're taking part of our energy. If I may, I'd like to give one last analogy.
Absolutely. No worry. I was actually just going to say, is there anything else you want to add before we transition to where's Sophia today and where are you headed next? And how can our audience get a hold of you? So that's perfect.
Okay, so let's imagine we all have cell phones, right? So let's imagine your body, which is a battery. I'm going to explain in a second why it's a battery, but let's take the analogy first. Your body is like a cell phone, right? So you have your cell phone, you restart it the next morning, and in no time it's drained again. You do that for a few days, you charged it, you turned it off, and it's draining. So you go in and you see there are like 15 apps that were running in the background that you actually have to close. And now once you close them, the phone or your cell phone doesn't drain off. Well, the body is the same. These traumatic memories or these apps where our thought process is going are running in the background. We're not aware of it. We go to sleep at night like we turn to recharge our phone, but we wake up exhausted because they're still running in the background. And when these apps, which are our thought processes or traumatic memories, are happening, we're not getting enough delta non-REM sleep, which is a certain brainwave. So we're getting REM sleep or we're not getting any sleep because our thoughts are racing in our head. So of course we're going to wake up exhausted. So what we want to do is shut off these apps, which is our thoughts, traumatic memories, to go off. And why we know the body is a memory? What's the first thing when they want to jumpstart someone who has died? They take 2 paddles and they put an electrical charge, and then they give them some electrolytes, which is the fluid, to bring them back to life. So your body is your battery.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the positive and negative charge.
Yeah. And when you're talking with your hand, tapping on your hand, does it matter if you tap on the right hand or the left hand?
Doesn't matter at all.
Okay.
And you don't even have to know the exact words. You just need to be expressing what it is that you're feeling. If you're feeling anger, let the anger out versus going and verbally attacking someone with your anger. At least you're in your home and you're speaking to the wall.
All right. Well, if somebody wants to continue the conversation with you, Sophia, what's the best way for our listeners to reach you?
They can come to my website and get a 30-minute complimentary session, and I can guide them what they need to do. I offer a free masterclass on the course I teach, which is about an hour, and I give them some tips and tools how to change their thoughts. I have a blog that I write, and they can find me on social media And the handle on most of them is tap into your best self. And my desire for everyone is that the body has its innate capacity to heal if it's put under the right conditions. And it's our birthright to be happy and healthy and have the life we truly want. It might take some time, or it may not take, depending on your commitment. And you can enjoy a better life than the one that other people wanted to program you with or dish you out with.
All right. Well, Sophia, thank you for being here today. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot. And if you have any other final parting thoughts or something that just came up, feel free to share it. If not, we're going to wrap up the episode and we'll let our remarkable community reach out to you and continue the conversation.
No, I want to thank you for having me here. And I think it's a good time of the year for people to start fresh and to remember their yesterday doesn't have to be a predictor of their tomorrow. Where's the yesterday? You can't find it, right? It's in your head. So why not start with a brand new you as the new year comes in less than a day and a half?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is you may be listening to this in June. Sophia and I are recording this today right before the new year of 2025. But every day is a fresh start. Every breath's a new breath. And don't use that as an excuse to, oh, I'll start next week, or I'll start next month, or I'll start next year. Start right now. Because statistically, I don't care who you are. If you don't start right now, you're not starting. So start it. Do it. Rip off the Band-Aid and go. Would you agree with that, Sophia?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If not now, when, right?
Yep. Yep. So listen, it's been great speaking with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. Check out Sophia's website and her social media. Take advantage of that free 30-minute class she offered. And then shop with our affiliate sponsors. They help us keep the lights on so you keep getting great content week after week for over 5 years now. And I wouldn't be promoting them if they're not fantastic. So you know it's great quality products. You're saving a ton of money. And you're hoping our podcast reach more people around the world. Hopefully this episode has helped you. Share it with your friends and family. We love you. Sophia, thank you again for being with us today.
And it was an honor being on your show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat for life. The Remarkable People Podcast.